Kusum Clum. So Penny is a biochemical engineer, and from what I've seen, she seems to be a right brain person trapped in a left brain world. Her passion is the overlap of opposites, science and spirituality, physical and non-physical, outer world and inner experience. From what I can tell, Penny seems to have found that place of calm, the eye of the storm, between all of these opposite forces that are in our lives. With that, please join me in welcoming Penny Kusum Clum.
Yes, I seem to have found the calm in the storm until I step up here. So I could possibly be the only person in this room that needs this breath this badly, but maybe together we could take an inhale and sigh it out our mouths. Am I sounding as funny as I think I do? Okay, all right, you ready? Inhale.
You sound great.
And exhale. I have something I'd like to share with you. I will. Over the course of my life, I've learned a lot of really cool things. One thing I'll say is that I've been gifted with a really curious mind, and my interest is always sparked. I love to experience things firsthand, and in fact, having mind-opening experiences has apparently been more important to me than following whatever path I was expected to follow. You could say I've been a fan of freedom for a very long time. So yes, I'm an engineer. Through my early life though, high school or so, I was a poet and a musician. I practiced and played clarinet voluntarily in orchestras and in ensembles because I couldn't not play. It was my love, my connection, and my first doorway to that inner freedom. It was more my voice than my own voice was. I had my first big peak moment playing. I had won a solo competition and got to perform my favorite piece live with an orchestra, the Mozart Clarinet Concerto. Now, when you're playing something like this, it goes on for a long time and there are pages of music to keep turning for yourself. Somewhere in the middle of this performance, something happened that didn't even register with me until it stopped. I fell into this groove where my hands and fingers were on autopilot, my breath was breathing me, and the vibrations of the sound coming from my instrument were reverberating through me. I literally felt like it was my voice. It was so light and otherworldly, inexplicable, floating. Towards the end, I dropped back into my mind and into my vision, and I realized I hadn't turned any pages. I had not seen anything, even though my eyes were open. I finished, but I never forgot the physicality, and I wanted to know what that was. We've all had these moments, you know, those moments where everything just seems to stop. They can be prompted by good things, like holding your baby for the first time, or coming to the summit, a mountain, a view that just takes your breath away, or highly trained athletes live there quite often. Or they can come from challenging moments, a nearly missed car crash, the words, "you have cancer," or witnessing your dear father's last exhale and the silence that follows. During these moments, there's a suspension, that extended moment of white, shining, searing, still suspension. These moments overtake you. The rug is pulled out. There's no sense of time and nothing is solid, yet nothing is really moving. What is that? I'm sure of a few things from my peak moments. I know that's what freedom feels like. I also know the thing they all had in common was that my mind dropped out because it had never seen anything like that before. For once, it had nothing to compare to, and so it shut down. And I knew I was onto something. I wanted to foster more of that in my life and in the lives of those I teach through my studios and my immersion programs. So this is where I began looking for patterns. I love finding patterns in the seemingly random. They're always there. It's a bit of a twisty story how I ended up in engineering school instead of music school, but that's where I landed, and I'm glad I did. Engineering school served as the best foundation I could have ever found for training my left brain. So guess what engineers study? Patterns. Chemical engineers specifically study patterns in things and processes that are flowing, moving, and changing. For me, the system I wanted to study was the human body and mind, a fascinating source of never-ending things to look at. So pause button. What did I learn from all that input? All that data from being a student, a teacher, a mom, and researching in my own life. Another trait of engineers is that we love to apply fascinating knowledge to make change. So life improving external change along with internal change. I learned that everything comes in waves, that this is the nature of all things, and that the good stuff like freedom and ease, radical uncaused joy exist at the end of the completed waves. The completed waves. My engineering brain, AKA my left brain, has been trained to see clearly, and I looked at the data from my own life, like my peak moments. There was a fairly intense or out of ordinary action in every peak moment that was followed by that inescapable quiet and dissolving into that no thought space that led to kaboom, that unforgettable floating. I also looked at more general experiences to see if they had a wave-like nature too, like my breath, like muscles tightening and then softening. And I even thought of the tourniquet effect in the hospital, where when a heart is not beating, when pressure is applied and then it's released, it will right itself in that space. I looked also at the actions I take as a human being, the tasks I perform, the conversations I have, the emotions that run through me, all similar wave-like experiences. So then the question for me was, why don't I feel that quiet space after an experience more regularly? It's because we often divert out as soon as something that occurs, as soon as it becomes uncomfortable or even scary. And this is our free will as human beings. It's our gift and our challenge. The constant choice to either stay and allow waves of emotion and sensation, or to bail. So an experience starts rolling in. My mind kicks in and I think or I do something, and then I take action. If I can stop after the doing and shift into waiting and softening, no matter what's rolling through, then I can ride that wave all the way to the sweet spot. How do I do this? I free fall into the sensory experience that follows my action. I simply feel my 5 senses however they come. It takes faith, bravery, and a sense of adventure. And if I stay with it, I will always, every time, land in that sacred space between the waves, the most mentally challenging place of all, to be in between. But this is where grace lives. Knowing, creativity, and possibility reside there. I have learned it takes a clear left brain taking action, coupled with a right brain fortitude to let go of control. This creates the structure that allows grace to enter my being and therefore enter this world. And this is the dynamic that creates everyday peak moments. This is also the dynamic needed to live in this kind of freedom.